Big Brother, mainstream media, government cover-ups. You want answers? Well, so does he. He's Alex Jones on the GCN Radio Network. And now, live from Austin, Texas, Alex Jones.
Great to have you on with us. We hope you'll come back and visit Kinky and Willie and a lot of others in the near future, sir. There's a lot to talk about in this short segment we've got. What do you think is most important about this book? I don't just say this when I have guests on. I couldn't put this book down. It's amazing.
Well, thank you. You know, I wrote the book. I now live in Mexico for half the year, and I got together with Dick Russell, a friend of mine down there who's a writer, and we put this book together. But I think the main thing that I want to stress and get across to people is that we do need a revolution in this country. And when I say revolution, that doesn't mean it has to be violent. You know, typically people think that, you know, like overthrowing the government of Cuba when Castro and Che Guevara did that with violence. But we can have a revolution without violence, and it's high time for it, Alex, because, I mean, my God, the Democrats and Republicans, we are now $9 trillion in debt. That is the national debt. And if they behave that way in the private sector, they'd be jailed and put in prison, you know, like Enron and WorldCom, and yet our media and all our pundits put them up on pedestals. They call them honorable, and the whole thing in our history books will say how great they are, and they're selling our country out from right under our feet.
And that's why you say, don't start the revolution without me. And I agree, the most successful revolutions really aren't violent. Look at the Renaissance itself was a revolution of ideas and the printing press and free market. I see what we need to develop is something similar to the Renaissance, a rediscovery of liberty and freedom, and what Ron Paul has said, legalizing freedom.
Exactly. You know, Ron Paul was a very interesting candidate in the presidential race that the media really kind of pushed him off and didn't listen to what he had to say, and that's the sad part about it, because I found it very interesting when Bhutto was killed over in Pakistan, and all of the candidates went on with this big litany of what the United States should be doing and this and that and whatever, and it got to Ron Paul, and he said something to me that was the best answer. He simply said, "Isn't that Pakistan's business?"
Absolutely. Well, you know, Ron Paul is still out there on the campaign trail. I mean, he's admitting he's not going to win, but he's there to inject real issues into the debate. That's why I wish you'd run, Jesse Ventura. In fact, I wish you'd run right now so we could at least inject real issues.
Well, you know, it was interesting. I did Larry King last night, and Larry started at the start of the show and asked a question. He said, "How many people think Jesse Ventura should run for president?" And I was astounded by the end of the show. It just floored me. I thought maybe if I got 50 or 60%, I'd be doing good. It was 85%, Alex. It was just mind-boggling.
Oh, there's incredible disenfranchisement with the major two parties, as you know. I mean, look at Congress with, depending on the poll, an 11 to 20% approval rating. Both parties are hated now.
Well, and they should be. As I said, they've put us so far in debt, I can't even fathom what $9 trillion is. Can you?
No, I can't. Jesse the Mind Ventura will be back in about 2 minutes on the other side of this quick break, right here on the one, the only GCN Radio Network. He's got so many titles that I don't know which one to call him by, but we'll just go with Governor Ventura. Jesse the Mind Ventura with us for the rest of the hour. This book is titled Don't Start the Revolution Without Me. I think it's a wonderful title, and it's in stores everywhere today. He's just launching his tour yesterday. We're honored to have him. But you could also call it the Adventures of Jesse Ventura, because it is quite a page turner, because you've had quite a full life. Why did you decide to write this particular style of book?
Well, first of all, you know, Alex, I want to explain, you know, I had 2 New York Times bestsellers before this book, and of course, they gave me huge front money to write that book, and it was interesting. I'll give you a little inside info. This book, we wrote it down in Mexico. We brought the full transcript back, Dick Russell and I. We were turned down by 24 publishers. And I already had 2 New York Times bestsellers. I found that pretty interesting.
You know, are you breaking that here? Because I did quite a bit of research for this interview, and I hadn't seen that.
Am I what out there?
No, I mean, is this the first time you've told this story?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I mean, please.
We got turned down by 24, and finally Skyhorse, which is a small publishing company in New York, picked it up. But the good thing is we're with Norton Distribution, which is a huge distributor, and that's the key is once you get published, then you need to get it to a good distributor, and they're one of the biggest, so it'll be everywhere. But, you know, I wrote this book. I didn't take any big front money because I truly wanted this book out there. I didn't care about the money on this book. I wanted to tell my story. I wanted to tell about the things that happened when I was in office, because Alex, I don't know if certainly you read the book, so you know this. MSNBC in essence censored me. Because when I came out of office, I was the hottest commodity out there. I was the voice of the independent. The CNN wanted me, MSNBC wanted me, Fox News wanted me. I signed with MSNBC, and then essentially they wouldn't even put me on the air, and my contract stated that I couldn't do any news shows or I couldn't do any cable or satellite. And so I believe I was silenced on purpose.
Well, let's stop right there, Governor Ventura. This is all amazing bombshells that you're dropping on us. First, you've had 2 super New York Times bestsellers.
Right.
You've been the dark horse candidate of the people in Minnesota. You spurred Schwarzenegger to run and caused that whole phenomenon, and he's basically admitted it, seeing you have success. He went for it. You have this amazing history, Hollywood star, and you went to 20-plus publishers, and they said no, and you went to a new publisher that just fired up, in 2007, according to what I was reading on their site. I mean, that is a story of censorship alone and their fear of your message. But now we're learning, and yes, you do mention in the book, and of course, get into it, but there's so much of the book I'd forgotten about that MSNBC literally muzzled you and used that contract to block you from going anywhere else.
Exactly. They wouldn't put me on the air, and the reason for it was because I was opposed to the Iraq War before it started. If you think back, do you remember when Phil Donahue had that short-lived show on MSNBC?
They kicked him off. Yeah.
Well, Phil was the highest-rated show they had. Have you ever, Alex, heard of a network pulling its highest-rated show?
It's suicide.
Well, you don't do that, and yet they did it. You know, they pulled Phil, and then they wouldn't allow me on, and it was because Phil and I were both questioning the reasons why are we going into Iraq. If you believe 9/11 and what they told us, there wasn't one Iraqi even involved in it. Iraq did nothing to us.
Well, that's right. There are still some neocon followers of what I call fake conservative news shows that still believe Saddam was the one behind the attack when Bush and Cheney admit he had nothing to do with it and actually fought against the Wahhabists based in Saudi Arabia known as Al-Qaeda.
Well, I don't know if you can ever get Dick Cheney to admit that and George Bush, but I know that they still like to refer back and try to tie the two together all the time somehow.
There are a few clips where they've had to admit it. One time Cheney was on with Russert and had to admit it.
Oh, okay. You know, you probably watch more than I do because I'm living in Mexico now, and you know that's another subject that's interesting, Alex. You know, this whole situation with immigration. I mean, I live down with all these brown-skinned people down there, and I don't know about you and where you stand on it, but I don't believe the United States needs to be East Berlin.
Well, we have a Larry King clip. John, you've got that clip, don't you? Okay, well, we're going to play that coming up in a little while. But last night you said, hey, Lou Dobbs, what are you so afraid of? I live down, in the middle of nowhere in Mexico, and these brown-skinned people are pretty nice.
They're very nice. I'll tell you, I have the time of my life down there. And, Alex, I live an hour from pavement and an hour from electricity.
Tell us about where you live.
Well, but trust me, I do have electricity. My house is completely solar. I'm off the grid, and I live off the sun.
No, but, I mean, I want to image your house in my mind. What's it look like? Where is it?
It's beautiful. Well, I don't want to get you too close because I like
Don't worry, I'm not going to come down there. I'm just saying I can picture you in this little jungle bungalow off the beach.
Well, trust me, it's not quite a jungle bungalow. It's 3 bedrooms, 3.5 baths with a casita in the back, a 2.5-car garage, my own swimming pool, and 40 of my own palm trees.
Sounds awesome. And so
It's great.
So what, you just go out and scuba dive and surf all day?
I scuba dive, I hang with the surfers. We've got a whole group of expatriates down there, surfers, who they work up in the United States for 6 months, and they save their money, and then they go down and live in the arroyos on little campsites and surf all the time, and they're marvelous people.
No, believe me, every day I dream about moving off to some tropical paradise. So you certainly are living the life. And so you're just coming back to the U.S., I guess, because you're so sick of seeing it turn into a police state?
Well, I come back every year. I should make mention I live there 6 months, and then if you've ever been to Minnesota, I wouldn't wish a Minnesota winter on my worst enemy.